unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
And hello everyone, and welcome to this debut of In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty. To learn more about Souls and Liberty, we invite you to visit the website soulsandliberty.com. I'm your host, Gary Michael Voris. In Depth is the program where we bring you thoughtful discussion, helping you connect the dots behind today's headlines, the big picture. So, joining us today in this debut episode, we have Trainor from the Federal Election Commission. Hello, Trey.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. We're going to be talking a lot about political chaos, but first, also introduce Jim Ellis of Ellis Communications, longtime veteran of campaigns and politics. Hi, Jim.
Gary, how are you? Too long,
Good.
I think, is the answer to that
Very
question.
well. Things are going nuts. Political chaos is the word. Now, gentlemen, between the three of us, we have well over a combined century of knowledge and experience in politics and covering them. So let's begin by asking you, Trey, could you ever have imagined the current set of circumstances in the political world?
I can never imagine the current set of circumstances in the political world. In fact, it's driven me to ask several questions of first impression of the law here lately with all sorts of things that are happening with how money moves around in politics.
Do you have a concern that there may be some funny business going on here? I mean, even just look at the circumstances of Biden's resignation yesterday. Nobody's seen the guy in 24 hours, and he resigns from the campaign for presidency by X Twitter post.
Well, I mean, it shows where we're at in communication mediums that he put it out on X. But, I think the standard was set when LBJ came on television and announced that he was not going to seek re-election. I think that's the standard that everybody's looking for, to actually see Joe Biden and have him actually say the words that he's no longer seeking the election. I think that'd be the best way to end all of the speculation that's going on. I think it's generally legitimate right now, but obviously be great to hear it from the president himself.
Yeah, there's all kinds of madness. I mean, is that really his signature? Why didn't he endorse Kamala in the letter? Who posted it? And why was there a separate posting? This is just political chaos, as we said. Jim Ellis, let me turn to you. Since Donald Trump took that golden elevator ride back on June 16th, 2015, announcing his candidacy, America has never been the same, and well, here we are now.
Here we are now. It just keeps getting stranger and stranger. And just think, in the last 3 weeks, all we've had the debate performance from Biden that kicked this off, and then the terrible assassination attempt on President Trump, and now we see the president leaving the race. So it's really an extraordinary time.
Do you have a sense that no, same question I asked Trey. It just seems like there's a bunch of funny business going on, almost to the point of being sinister. I don't think sinister is too overly broad a word for where we are right now.
Well, and I don't think we've seen anything yet on that front. But, it just strikes me, and I think the Republicans have a pretty good rejoinder to this, that this so-called party that protects democracy has just thrown democracy aside here. There was 14 million people that voted for Joe Biden in these primaries, and now they've adopted really sort of a Russian electoral system where the party dictates who's going to be their leader, and that's it. And you have to fall in line. That's what they're doing. So I think the Republicans are on the right track with their message. I thought in the convention and now.
Let me switch back to Trey for a moment. Trey, from the political rules, I mean, you're on the Federal Election Commission. Is any of this, I'm not sure what the term is it violation of anything? Is there anything illegal? Is there anything that raises the hackles of the gatekeepers in D.C. saying, you're not allowed to do this?
Well, I don't know that we've seen anything that is illegal. But again, as I mentioned previously, a lot of this is a matter of first impression. We've never been in a position where a candidate has made it through all of the primary processes and gotten to the convention and has dropped out of the race. So there are a lot of questions surrounding what happens to the money that's been raised, that's been allocated towards the general election and hasn't been spent yet? Does Kamala Harris inherit all of those funds? Is it one of those things where they have to come to the Federal Election Commission and ask for an advisory opinion on how to handle that? I mean, all of these things are the first time we've ever really dealt with them. So it's hard to say that there's been a violation of the law when we're really dealing with an area of the law that nobody's really contemplated up to this point.
This is like the Trump trials all over again. Novel charges and novel prosecutions, and now we have a novel election. Jim, switching back to you, give us a little historical perspective on this. And if that perspective is there is no perspective because nothing like this has ever happened, that's fine too. But you've been around the political scene a very long time, worked on campaigns and all kinds of polling and the whole bit. What do your bones tell you about what's happening?
Well, we really have seen something like this before. And I was kind of amused at the coverage on Fox News. They were saying, oh, this is the first time we will have a nominee of either party where they've never received a primary vote, not one primary vote, or won a caucus or a primary. That's not true. Gerald Ford, remember, when he was chosen by Richard Nixon to be vice president and then Nixon resigned and Ford became president, he never was in a primary prior to assuming the office and then running himself. So this really isn't the first time we've seen something similar. We did see it back in the 1976 election with Gerald Ford assuming the presidency in 1974 and then becoming the Republican nominee and running for president.
Do you think there's a serious reason for people? I mean, right now you go to social media, and I got to say, just as an aside, I mean, thank God that Elon Musk purchased X or changed it to X. This is, I don't know where any of the information would be coming from. So if you're going to the mainstream guys, this is all fun, it's interesting, but everything's fine, nothing to see here, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And that is not the impression from tens of thousands, probably millions of people on Twitter who are saying there's a coup going on, he didn't sign the letter. What do you think of people being able to come to those kinds of conclusions? Jim?
Well, I found it amusing also that President Biden chose X to release his one statement after how they excoriate Elon Musk for what he did with buying Twitter, changing it to X, and all of the other things that he's involved in. So I found that kind of amusing. It's this from that standpoint, we've never seen anything like this before because of the way we communicate now. It's so much different than it was even in 2016 when Trump began his presidential run. But the bottom line is, I think the Republicans are on the right message, and that is, it doesn't matter who the Democratic nominee is. Their record is still terrible, and that's not going to change. It's not going to change on destroying wealth, on the border situation, and on your personal safety as it relates to crime. So I think the Republicans are on the right track with the message.
I know you have to be somewhat circumspect, perhaps, because of your position, Trey Trainor, on the Federal Election Commission. But look, you're also a human being, an individual, and you have your own opinions on things. Do you think that is this something Republicans should be concerned about because it will have the impact of lifting Democrats out of their gloom over Biden and all of that, and you'll get young, fresh blood, whether it's Kamala or not? You can't find anybody really older besides Nancy to run besides Biden. So is this something Republicans shouldn't be taking too lightheartedly?
Well, I don't think you can take any election lightheartedly, and I think that the Republicans will focus appropriately on whoever the candidate is. And to kind of follow up with what Jim had to say, they'll be focused on a message that talks about the differences in policies and the differences in how they want to govern. And I think that's the important point. here with regard to whether or not this moves the Democratic Party out of the mire of the Joe Biden candidacy. I'm not sure that it actually does, other than just to move it from a conversation about Joe Biden to now a conversation about whether or not true democratic principles are being followed by how they're nominating a candidate.
Also, sticking with the question here, Jim, let me switch to you because of the sort of sensitive nature of this. How can Joe Biden run a country while he can't even run a campaign? It seems weird. They've wiped out his entire schedule for the week. He's scheduled for nothing. We already heard he can only work 10 to 4, and now he's stepped down from a campaign. Shouldn't he have stepped down from the office?
Well, many people, including J.D. Vance, are making that argument. I know J.D. Vance was the first to call for his resignation under what you just said, Gary, for the very same reasons. And, Speaker Mike Johnson followed suit in saying that Biden really should resign and leave office. I'm not sure that politically, let's take a look at it from two perspectives here. Running the country, that probably may be better. I don't know. Would Kamala Harris even be better than Biden in the current state? But from a political standpoint, from a campaign standpoint, I think it would be a worse situation if Harris was actually the sitting president instead of a vice president merely running for president.
And that's provided, of course, she gets the nomination. That's not a foregone conclusion right now. Trey, let me switch back to you here again in just your private capacity. Do you find it interesting that shortly after the follow-up tweet went out on Biden's account by we don't know who, saying, hey, I support Kamala, do you find it interesting that Barack Obama then followed up relatively quickly, not endorsing her and just saying, hey, we're going to get to the convention and we're going to produce the best candidate ever possible, we're going to defeat Donald Trump? Kamala did not get the Obama's endorsement. What do you think that's all about? Again, just as a private individual, your own gut.
Well, as a private individual speaking to this, I think it talks to the turmoil that's going on inside the Democrat Party with regard to not having any rules on how this process is going to play out. And it's one where they're going to have to go in. I think the early part of their convention is all going to be about rules of how this process is being governed, and is one where nobody wants to get too far over their skis.
You also have the question of, very shortly after the tweet, the X, what do they call him now? An X? Right after the Biden tweet, Alex Soros, son of George Soros, puts out a older picture of him and Kamala standing there, arms around each other, and saying, yay, go Kamala. Really? The Soroses have that much of an impact that they can just inject themselves into something seconds after the whole thing has started to blow up and saying, yep, this is our woman. Elon tweeted out, I thought it was great. Man, he's going hard in the paint on every post he puts out now. He said, well, good to see we know who who they picked for their puppet now.
Well, Gary, I would say that this all is being driven by really being driven by campaign finance decisions, and the Soros picture probably speaks to that in a way. What has driven President Biden out of the race is that the money coming into the campaign has started to dry up, with several donors saying that they're not going to give any more money to the Biden campaign, but that they weren't going to support any other Democrat candidates. And I think that's where the alarm bells really started to sound in this particular race. And so, it really is just a symbol of how campaign finance is driving the decisions that are being made.
Yeah, it's very, it's crazy. And that's, of course, is something you guys keep your eyes on at the Federal Election Commission of, hey, can't have any funny business going on here. Jim, back to you for a second. The billionaires who all started lining up with Trump after the Manhattan jury, remember that? That was like 12 crisis moments ago? Now we're to this one. they're still staying with him. I mean, David Sachs is posting left and right, essentially screw the Democrats. It's essentially what he's saying in his post. They're crooked, they're lying, they're corrupt, they're trying to commit a coup, steal the country, whatever. What do you think's driving, picking up from from Trey's point about the money, what do you think's driving them, the billionaires, at least those billionaires?
I totally agree with Trey on the campaign finance angle. I think that was the deciding factor. I think Biden, he consistently said he was in the race. He was consistently moving forward. What changed? I think what really changed is the money, as Trey mentioned. And the Democratic big donors had turned the spigot off. And you could see that their money really was trailing off, and the big advantage they originally had over Trump has dissipated. I mean, if you look at the last FEC reports June 30th, they're down to 95 million in the bank. Now that's a lot of money, but Trump has 116, and that doesn't include all the outside money from each side. So I think the idea that the donors were saying, and it makes sense, they're saying, look, we're not going to spend a dime until we know what's going on here. And in terms of Kamala Harris, she is the weakest candidate they have. And from a Republican standpoint versus how the Democrats are viewing this, this is who the Republicans will want to run against. She by far is the weakest person that they could put up, and she's going to get it. The die is cast, I think, here, and mostly for what Trey was saying in terms of campaign finance. Otherwise, they've got major problems on the money front if they don't go to her. Now, they had 79 House members endorsed her last night, 21 Democratic U.S. senators, and all 50 Democratic Party state chairmen are on board with her. So I think they're doing the right thing to get her the nomination. And frankly, for Republicans, they should be applauding this because that's who Trump should be wanting to run against.
It's interesting as you roll through that list of endorsements, the name missing is Obama. There's a bunch of chatter about he's going to be working behind the scenes, and then all of a sudden, our savior Michelle is going to be paraded out. Any thoughts on that? Well, I mean, why wouldn't Obama support her publicly?
I think he probably will. Bill and Hillary Clinton announced their support for Harris as well. So she's got a lot going for her right now. And I think that's their easiest move. That's the move logistically that makes the most sense. She is the weakest one they have, but I think they're stuck with her, frankly.
Yeah, it does seem kind of like, how do you bypass the sitting vice president of the United States and go into your bench like, 6 places deep? Seems, extremely weird.
Let's think about that. If they try to do something at the convention, what would her response be? Guess what? Racism and sexism. It's identity politics on the Democratic side is the most important thing they have. That's really what they care about. Yeah, and do you really think they're going to move the first woman of color who is the vice president of the United States? You think they're going to move her out of that position when she has a chance to become the nominee? This is what all they stand for, really. And Kamala Harris will be the nominee, and that's a good thing for the Republicans.
Yeah, it's been characterized on social media as MAGA versus DEI. So that's what the race is going to be. And, frankly, maybe it should be that. Trey, let me switch back to you. In full disclosure, your position on the Federal Election Commission is owing to Donald Trump. But on the question of Kamala, I'm sure everybody has seen that, I don't know what you call it, a sneak video from 2-3 weeks ago, where he's sitting on the golf cart and he says some unflattering things about Kamala. I don't think the Kamala move has actually surprised the Trump camp at all. I mean, they released an anti-Kamala video practically within minutes of the Biden tweet.
Well, I have to tell you, I have been overly impressed with the level of organization that the Trump campaign has had this time. And I think you saw that reflected in how well the Republican National Convention was conducted, with all 4 nights having really high profile people, lots of things that were being discussed that are relevant to the American people. So it doesn't surprise me that they were prepared to go very quickly with some sort of advertisement related to the vice president. So, it really just is par for the course right now for how adept the Trump campaign is at handling all of these adjusting situations.
It's also interesting that there are no pro Kamala, from the DNC or all these side groups and PACs and super PACs. There's no air war going on for her. I'm sure it'll be coming in the next day or two. But that tells me, kind of a political hack reporter myself, that many of the people in the Democratic Party were kind of caught off guard by this. It's like a move by the leaders, but all the worker bees who would have to carry it out are sitting in stun, at least yesterday. What are your thoughts about that in D.C., Trey?
It could be that they were caught off guard by it, but I think the thing that's probably driving more of that is the fact that the Democratic Party was in a position to have to pull down all of their advertising in the wake of the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. When that assassination attempt happened, the Democratic Party pulled all of their ads, and so they don't have spaces to go in and be able to promote a new candidate at this point without, one, cutting those ads, and then two, going back and repurchasing or at least reacquiring those spots that they previously had. And there's no sense that the American public is yet prepared to hear attacks against Donald Trump in the wake of the assassination attempt.
Especially coming from Kamala Harris. The whole thing's crazy. But guys, let me shift gears for a second here. We are souls and liberty, faith, religion, theology, and the mix of that with politics. But we've entered a whole new place, or perhaps better said, it's now been revealed that what we see out front isn't what really is going on in the back rooms of the elites. So, question for both of you. We'll start with you, Jim. On a spiritual, religious perspective, how do you see all this craziness? All three of us are practicing Catholics here. So, Jim, you go first.
Well, I think there's no question the assassination attempt was foiled through an act of God, just as President Trump said it was. I don't think there's any doubt about that. How close it came, how everything was set up perfectly to, frankly, kill him through this sniper on the roof, that he was allowed to get up on the roof. The security was lax and terrible. And if it wasn't for God himself, Trump would not be with us. And so this is an opportunity not only for him, but for all of us to really sort of say, hey, this is a very, very significant event. And we just have to thank him for saving President Trump's life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was talking with a friend a few weeks ago, maybe, I think it was before the debate, and we were just sitting in my place talking, and we both agreed there's no way they can let either Trump or Biden remain on that ticket. And so, a couple, 3 weeks later, their desire to get rid of Trump almost worked. Failing that, they get rid of Biden. There might be sinister people working behind the scenes and demons working behind them, but this is all happening in the permissive will of God, Trey.
Well, it really does go to show you that God rules in everything that's going on in the world, and all of these things, frankly, are preordained. So He has control over all of this. And I agree with Jim. I mean, it was divine intervention that saved Donald Trump. And we can't look past the fact that all of this is God's will with regard to the direction of our country, and frankly the direction of the world, because this election has such a significant impact on what happens around the world, whether it be in Israel, Ukraine, all of the various fighting that's going on around the world. And it really is. It should be heartening to us as Christians and as Catholics to see these type of things playing out. While they may be difficult for us to watch, I think they also give us a great solace that God is ultimately in control of all of these things.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So for the moment, gentlemen, we're going to leave it right here. We're going to have you back on later this week as events to continue to, well, normally we say unfold here. I think a better word might be as events continue to erupt almost on an hourly basis. So for the moment, thank you both. That wraps us up for today. Thank you for watching. Souls and Liberty is going to be bringing you in-depth each day with intelligent discussion to help you connect the dots and provide a temporal as well as a spiritual, most importantly, spiritual framework from which to understand and process all the political chaos going on. If you like in-depth, please consider a donation to Souls and Liberty by just clicking on the provided link so we can keep bringing you thought-provoking programming every day. Until tomorrow, then, God love you. I'm Gary Michael Voris.